It is well known that the man whom it delighteth the people to honor keeps and for many years has kept as his concubine one of his slaves. Her name is Sally.
The discovery reopened a controversy that's been swirling around the president's legacy for over 200 years. It was these rumors that made the discovery of the secret room all the more scandalous. The room had been sealed off and hidden from plain sight for hundreds of years. It was very close proximity to Jefferson's personal room, just down the hall.
Monticello, meaning Little Mountain in Italian, is the plantation estate of the third U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. Acquired by Jefferson in 1777, this renowned founding father's property near Charlottesville, Virginia, along with its workers, continues to play a crucial role in U.S. history. The Thomas Jefferson Foundation, responsible for preserving and maintaining the 5,000-acre property, emphasizes that grasping Jefferson's essence requires an understanding of Monticello, viewing it as his autobiographical statement. As a national landmark, Monticello has captured the attention of American and international scholars alike. While extensive documentation exists about Jefferson's main residence, there has been a concerted effort by academia and archaeologists to explore the property's original purpose and the activities conducted on its grounds. This scholarly initiative has proven fruitful, leading to a remarkable discovery that has astonished historians. The revelation not only sheds light on the lives of the individuals residing there, but also significantly contributes to a deeper understanding of United States history. Monticello served as Thomas Jefferson's main residence until his move to the White House in 1801. Currently, the estate is meticulously preserved by the Thomas Jefferson Foundation and is open to the public, standing as a revered historical landmark. The construction of this expansive estate began in 1768, and its renowned sprawling grounds have been thoroughly documented and are widely recognized. Born in 1743, Thomas Jefferson embarked on the construction of Monticello at the age of 26, inheriting the land from his father. The initial intent for the property was the cultivation of wheat and tobacco. The choice of Charlottesville, named after British Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, was influenced by its climate characterized by hot, humid summers and mild winters, ideal for the cultivation of these crops. As is common with many family-held plantations in America, Monticello is not unique in having a complex and often challenging historical past.
Thomas Jefferson resided at his Monticello plantation in Charlottesville, Virginia, a well-regarded historical landmark visited by thousands of tourists every year. He had inherited 5,000 acres from his father.
In the construction of the plantation house, Thomas Jefferson utilized free workers, servants, and enslaved laborers. Despite his outspoken opposition to the institution of slavery and his efforts to end the practice, he harbored a secret of his own. The fact that he had hundreds of slaves working and living at Monticello presents a complex aspect of his legacy. This dark secret remains challenging for many individuals to reconcile. However, a discovery in 2017 by a group of archaeologists has brought new insights, shedding light on a previously unresolved aspect of Jefferson's history. The principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson is regarded as one of the most prominent figures in American history. One of the U.S. visionary founding fathers, he somewhat ironically penned the famous line, quote, "All men are created equal." Ironic why, you ask? Jefferson, despite the airs and graces he upheld, simultaneously kept 600 African-American slaves for the duration of his adult life. As such, he left a legacy which reflected his duality, his political life, and his personal life. The discovery in 2017 during an excavation on the estate contributes to history's understanding and opinion of Jefferson, causing many to reevaluate his contribution. Within the approximately 600 slaves at Monticello, one key figure emerges in the Jefferson mystery, Sally Hemmings. While much of her life remains shrouded in mystery, historians cannot dismiss her significance in Thomas Jefferson's life. Naturally, Sally Hemmings' story has captivated historians, maintaining its intrigue for over a century, nearly 200 years after her death. A discovery has provided fresh insights into her identity and the events that unfolded during her time at the Monticello estate. Born in 1773 to John Wales, a planter and slave trader who was also the father of Martha Jefferson, Sally Hemmings was the half-sister of Thomas Jefferson's wife. During her childhood, Sally, along with her siblings and mother, became the property of Martha as part of her inheritance from her father. As an enslaved woman of mixed race, Sally held a significant place in Jefferson's life. The historical consensus strongly suggests that Hemmings was the mother of Jefferson's children. However, due to legalities, the children she bore were considered enslaved people. The historical question of whether Jefferson did father Hemmings' children is the subject of what is known as the Jefferson-Hemmings controversy.
The primary allegation in the report suggested that Jefferson had started a relationship with a woman after his wife died. In and of itself, that's not too bad of an accusation.
Much investigation and historic analysis of DNA found a match between the Jefferson men and a descendant of Hemmings' youngest son, Eston. It has since been alleged that Jefferson was the father of all 5 of her children. Sally Hemmings, the youngest among 6 siblings, was notably 25 years younger than her half-sister Martha. The Hemmings siblings were raised at Monticello and received training for roles as servants. Despite their servitude, their positions were considered somewhat privileged compared to the laborers toiling in the fields, marking a certain level of relative exemption for the Hemmings children. In her youth, Sally Hemmings was an unremarkable figure described as a plain Jane. However, as time passed, her destiny unfolded into a narrative that would be intensely scrutinized, eventually transforming her into a household name. Despite later being referred to as the former president's mistress, she was in reality his property. Her story is devoid of glamour and pomp, portraying the life of an enslaved person whose well-being was intricately intertwined with that of her master. Hemmings unfortunately did not know much life outside of being an enslaved person. She was kept until Jefferson's death in 1826. While she lived her final years freely, the details of her time at Monticello are largely unknown. However, the keen eyes and scouring of documentation by scholars and historians unveiled a series of clues which has thus led to a better understanding of Hemmings' importance and historical significance. At this juncture, the question arises, what precisely captivated Thomas Jefferson about Sally Hemmings? Was it her loyal countenance, her physique, or perhaps her character? Clues to her appearance are found in one of the few surviving documents, a memoir written by the blacksmith Isaac Granger Jefferson. According to his account, Hemmings was described as mighty near white and possessed an appearance with long straight hair cascading down her back. Being an enslaved person, it was highly inappropriate for portraits to be taken in those days. However, historians have constructed an image of her based on the descriptions documented. According to Jefferson's grandson, Thomas Jefferson Randolph, she was, quote, light-colored and decidedly good-looking. As far as her role in the plantation, historians have noted her duties included working as a seamstress as well as a chambermaid. Surprisingly, despite Thomas Jefferson's meticulous record-keeping of Monticello's finances and births, there is a conspicuous absence of documentation on Sally Hemmings. While her image may have been indelibly imprinted in Jefferson's memory and possibly reflected in the faces of her children, the true likeness of Sally remains a perpetual mystery. Jefferson, widowed at the age of 39, undertook a significant journey 2 years later in 1784 when he brought his eldest daughter Martha to Paris. Subsequently, he summoned his youngest daughter, 9-year-old Mary, accompanied by the 15-year-old Hemmings. Serving as the US rep to France, these 2 years marked a transformative period in Sally's life. Notably, Hemmings' brother James also joined the Jeffersons in Europe, serving as their personal chef. During the time in France where slavery was prohibited, both Sally Hemmings and her brother had the option to petition for freedom and live as free individuals. The decision to return to the United States with Jefferson, where she would be enslaved again, is perplexing. However, the reasons behind this choice are both shocking and aligned with the best interests of Sally's undisclosed secret.
When they are in slavery, there are not that many choices that they can make because the law is the thing that defined their society, their status.
Paris, the city of love, not the city of teenage pregnancy. It was in Paris that historians agree Jefferson began an S relationship with the young Hemmings. He was in his mid-40s, and she was barely 16. It was at this time that, according to Hemmings' son Madison, Hemmings became pregnant by Jefferson. The pair returned to the US in 1789, and it seems that the child she bore was not the only one that would call Jefferson father. Sally went on to have 6 children following her return from Europe, and reports from the time suggest that they were indeed all Jeffersons due to the strong features and strong resemblance to their father. This relationship was kept extremely discreet. Any sort of relations with a slave would be scandalous, particularly against the name of a man running for the position of president. It was not until over 20 years later that the facts would come to light and the controversy would come to the fore. In the spring of 1802, 2 decades after the events transpired, the Jefferson-Hemmings controversy emerged. James T. Callender, one of Jefferson's adversaries, fueled the controversy by publishing a report that tarnished Jefferson's reputation. The allegations gained traction due to accounts of several light-skinned slaves at the Monticello plantation. While Jefferson refrained from publicly refuting the claims and remained discreet about the parentage of Hemmings' children in his comprehensive farm book, his family later sought to suppress the narrative, vehemently denying Jefferson's involvement in the controversy. The offspring believed to have been fathered by Jefferson who reached adulthood were emancipated upon reaching the age of maturity, adding weight to the persistent rumors of his biological connection to them. Despite this, both his family and present-day historians staunchly reject the assertions of paternity. It wasn't until a century and a half later that a re-examination of evidence by historians revealed a new piece of information challenging the long-accepted narrative.
You really began to see it when Beverly and Harriet leave Monticello, Jefferson's son and daughter, leave Monticello to live as white people.
In 1997, American historian Annette Gordon Reed published a groundbreaking book scrutinizing the Jefferson-Hemmings controversy and exposing flaws in the widely accepted narrative. Her analysis of the historiography surrounding the saga revealed that 19th century historians had uncritically embraced assumptions, neglecting thorough investigation. They had dismissed the Hemmings family's account as mere oral history, privileging Jefferson's family testimony as the sole truth. The narrative propagated by the Jeffersons suggested that Peter Carr was the father of Hemmings' children. However, DNA analysis in 1998 contradicted this claim as it showed no genetic match between the Carr line and the tested descendant of the Hemmings family. The pivotal breakthrough came with the revelation of a genetic match between the Jefferson male line and the descendant of Eston Hemmings, Sally's youngest son. Eston's DNA served as a crucial link that debunked the fabricated Carr story, unequivocally affirming that Thomas Jefferson had indeed engaged in intimate relations with an enslaved person, and not just on a single occasion, but over an extended period. Fast forward 2 decades, and in 2017, archaeologists made a significant discovery that added another layer to this historical narrative. Despite over 90 years of meticulous maintenance and restoration by the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, the Monticello estate still held secrets. During an excavation focused on restoring the original layout of the plantation's southern wing, archaeologists unexpectedly stumbled upon a concealed living quarters that had eluded discovery for quite some time. This finding shed new light on the life of Sally Hemmings and added another dimension to the complex history of Monticello. This discovery gives us a sense of how enslaved people were living. Some of Sally's children may have been born in this room, Gardner Halleck, director of restoration for Monticello, tells Cotman. It's important because it shows Sally as a human being, a mother, daughter, and sister, and brings out the relationships in her life. Despite decades of restoration efforts, the room had managed to evade discovery, remaining untouched and concealed. The revelation, a gem that had slipped through the fingers of social scientists, ignited a renewed fervor around the nation, with headlines reigniting the Jefferson-Hemmings controversy. The stroke of luck in uncovering the hidden living quarters was particularly significant considering the numerous alterations the southern pavilion of the estate had undergone, both during and after Jefferson's lifetime. The construction of a museum and the continuous flow of people above and through the area had created layers of change. One might wonder, how could an entire room vanish from collective awareness over time, especially considering the scrutiny the estate had received? In the course of examining Monticello's history, historians stumbled upon a surviving document authored by one of Thomas Jefferson's grandsons. This document revealed a crucial detail: the location of Sally Hemmings' room within the south wing of the former main house. While historians maintained a healthy skepticism and refrained from treating the information as absolute truth, it did raise intriguing questions, particularly in connection to a modern restroom addition. This curiosity ultimately prompted further investigation, leading to the decision to excavate. As the narrative unfolded, archaeologists and historians embarked on a journey that unearthed not only artifacts but also missing pieces of the puzzle, enriching the understandings of Monticello's history and its inhabitants. The excavation yielded a collection of relics, each contributing to a growing narrative that pointed towards a significant revelation. Taking cues from Jefferson's grandson's clues, archaeologists took the bold step of demolishing the men's bathrooms, meticulously sifting through the soil for fragments and clues to unravel the mystery. Their efforts were not in vain, as they eventually unearthed Sally Hemmings' 14-foot living quarters. Among the discoveries were original brick floors dating back to the early 1800s, a brick hearth and fireplace, and a structure suitable for holding a stove. What left archaeologists astounded was the room's proximity to Jefferson's private bathroom located directly adjacent. This revelation suggested that the controversy held more truth than initially imagined, a dark secret that after over 170 years was finally coming to light. Historians Historians and archaeologists view the closeness of Hemmings' room to Jefferson's as a compelling indication of his paternity of her children. The discovery of the room, coupled with the DNA results, strongly supports evidence of their intimate relationship. This revelation underscores the complexity of Thomas Jefferson's character, revealing that a man who purportedly championed justice in his role as president also harbored secrets and displayed human flaws. This room is a real connection to the past, said Fraser Nyman, director of archaeology at Monticello. We are uncovering, discovering, and finding many artifacts. The room also highlighted the difference between the Hemmings' lives as slaves versus that of the others. For the first time at Monticello, we have a physical space dedicated to Sally Hemmings and her life. Mia Magruder-Damon, a spokeswoman for Monticello, told NBC BLK. It's significant because it connects the entire African-American arch at Monticello. The paradox of liberty embodied by Jefferson is stark, considering that a man who fervently advocated for the freedom of all not only took part in the enslavement of people but also kept one individual as an S-slave, a revelation that is far from flattering, especially for a US president or any human. It is speculated that Sally's decision to return from Paris was influenced by Jefferson's promise that the children she bore would be granted freedom once they reached the age of 21. Unsurprisingly, the Hemmings family was the only one among Jefferson's slaves to be freed, with only 3 others sharing this fortunate fate. The discovery of Sally Hemmings' room also shed light on the stark contrast in her living conditions compared to the other enslaved people at Monticello. While her standard of living was relatively higher, she remained enslaved, subject to the dehumanizing conditions of servitude. Hemmings' room, though superior, was described as dark and dingy, devoid of natural light, with no windows, making her living conditions uncomfortable despite the relative privilege. Some historians speculate that the decision to construct a bathroom above Sally Hemmings' quarters may have been a calculated attempt to conceal her and her secret. This could have been perceived as not only an insult to Jefferson's legacy but also to her own dignity. However, following her death, her story became known to all. Once discovered, historians and the committee of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation aimed to restore Sally Hemmings' room for public display. The space is curated with period-appropriate furniture and artifacts excavated on the property, including fine ceramics and bone toothbrushes. Contrasting with the past, where the estate's secrets were closely guarded, the $35 million mountaintop project at Monticello has made a bold effort to foster transparency, revealing the stories of both free and enslaved individuals who lived on the estate. Recent years have seen the introduction of tours that focus specifically on the Hemmings family, and the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. Monticello Estate is seemingly finished with avoiding Jefferson's relationship with Hemmings, with a new exhibit shedding light on the realities of slavery, as well as the truth behind Hemmings. The discovery of Hemmings' room also allowed for the public to see the real human side. Nia Bates, historian, remarked that the room would portray her outside of the mystery, no longer a topic of debate and speculation, but as the living, breathing woman she was. The exhibit seeks to bring life to a woman who was constantly linked to the dramas of Jefferson's life, not to mention terrible rumors and scandalous gossip. Quote, "She was a mother, a sister, an ancestor for her descendants, and the room's presentation will really just shape her as a person and give her a presence outside of the wonder of their relationship," Bates stated. Before the room was discovered, Sally's name was never mentioned, and tours skimmed briefly over Jefferson's love life, merely noting that he widowed a relatively young man. Monticello's shift in focus, highlighting the realities faced by the majority of people who lived and worked there, represents a departure from the estate's original portrayal to the public. Lucia Cinder Stanton, a retired historian who began working at Monticello in 1968, reflects on an era when Sally's name was never mentioned, a silent aspect of Monticello's history kept as a secret. During the 1960s, the prevailing culture deemed it scandalous to unveil such truths, even amid circulating rumors. Consequently, little information was shared about the Hemmings family as a whole. It wasn't until the 250th anniversary of Jefferson's birthday in 1993 that tours began to incorporate narratives of the enslaved individuals who worked and resided on the estate. Despite this significant step towards uncovering the truth about the lives of those at Monticello, many more years would pass before another revelation emerged. This revelation would lead descendants of the enslaved individuals to revisit the property that their ancestors had once called home. Whilst the discovery of Hemmings' room gave closure to some, it also gave answers which were less than satisfactory. Gail Jessup White, Sally Hemmings' distant niece, notes that, quote, "As an African-American descendant, I have mixed feelings. Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder." White, who works as Monticello's community engagement officer, is within her rights to feel uneasy. The social differences were so great that it leads one to believe that Jefferson conveniently held Hemmings as property and did not bother to think of the consequences of his own desires. White, as an African-American woman, appreciates the work of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation as, quote, "For too long our history has been ignored. Indeed, the discovery shed light on the real truth behind Monticello and that this sort of arrangement may have been more common than initially believed. Some people still don't want to admit that the Civil War was fought over slavery. We need to face history head-on and face the blemish of slavery, and that's what we're doing at Monticello." White is not alone, and joined by her colleagues, they seek to unveil more truths about the property and its history. Nash, often in the crossfire of the public's probing questions, shares some of the diverse inquiries thrown his way. Tourists question, quote, "Why did some slaves want to pass for white men when they were freed? And why did Jefferson own slaves and write that all men are created equal?" Nash's responses reflect a retrospective understanding of the historical context, acknowledging working in the fields was not a happy time. There were long days on the plantation. He highlights the harsh reality that enslaved individuals endured, working tirelessly from sunup to sundown 6 days a week, emphasizing that there was no such thing as a benevolent slave owner. Nash's answers underscore the stark contrast between Jefferson's rhetoric of equality and the harsh conditions faced by the enslaved population. Despite the promise of freedom, it remained an elusive dream, held just out of reach. The man who purportedly had the power to grant freedom guarded his own secret closely, exposing a troubling contradiction in the ideals of the time. Whilst it is easy to point the finger at Jefferson as a leader who went back on his word of creating a freer, more equal America, he was not the only prominent U.S. figure with a history of ownership of enslaved people. As historians scour documentation and evidence of the impressive lineup of presidents, it has been found that 12 leaders of the United States were slave owners at a point in their lives.